Welcome back. Well, as you know, from our 8-hour marathon live stream coverage on Sunday night, which bled into Monday morning, Erin O'Toole won the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada, not on the first ballot nor on the second, but on the third, where overwhelmingly Erin O'Toole was the second or third choice of candidates who had marked Leslyn Lewis as their first choice or Derek Sloan. It's obvious now, and I think it was even obvious back then, that if Peter MacKay didn't win or come very, very close to winning on the first ballot, he would be in deep trouble. And let me put a second theory, a hypothesis of why it was that MacKay lost so badly. The Toronto Star was startled by it. I didn't know what to make of it, but here's my theory. When Peter MacKay refused to come to the independent press gallery debates that were moderated by our friend Andrew Lawton of True North, he sent a signal to the other candidates' supporters that he did not think they were worth his time. And so it is my hypothesis that the key strategic error for the MacKay campaign was to snub the independent press gallery's debates in a manner that was so high-handed that every supporter for Derek Sloan or Leslyn Lewis said, oh, he doesn't just disrespect Andrew Lawton and Candice Malcolm. He disrespects all independent media, and through them, me. Thousands of Canadian Conservatives would have thought, he disrespects me. And joining us now via Skype to talk about my hypothesis is our friend Candice Malcolm, the president of the Independent Press Gallery. You were on the line there while I laid out my hypothesis. Maybe you're too modest to acknowledge it, but I put it to you that your debate, which was so excellent, and I've told you this before, Andrew Lawton did such a magnificent job. It was truly a career highlight. But the manner in which Peter MacKay snubbed you, your event, Andrew Lawton, and everyone who watched, I think people remembered that when it came to marking their second and third choice. What do you think of my hypothesis?
Well, it's certainly interesting. I hadn't heard it before just now. And I think that the one thing that I will agree with you on was that Peter MacKay seemed uncomfortable. He didn't seem interested in connecting with the base, connecting with, the sort of true blue conservative members, people in Western Canada, people in Alberta. He never really seemed comfortable. He seems much more comfortable with the sort of Toronto liberal crowd, the Toronto Star who endorsed him, the CBC. Those are sort of more his people. And, the example of him not showing up at the very last minute to our debate kind of exemplified who he is, which is that he doesn't really feel comfortable and he isn't really amongst the conservative base. He's not really one of us. He's sort of not quite an outsider, but just someone who doesn't really feel comfortable, doesn't really know how to communicate, doesn't know what to say. And that's why we saw like a lot of missteps and a lot of sort of flip-flops when it came to him trying to communicate that message. And perhaps there is something to that idea, because the independent press gallery debate happened sort of right at the end. It was right at the last moment where you had the opportunity to change your mind right before mailing out your ballots. So we did time it that way to make it an important event. And, credit and props to Erin O'Toole for showing up, even with the, switched, the sort of new agenda that we had. We didn't do a debate. We did fireside chat. So he was adaptable to that. He sat down, he had a long form interview and conversation with Andrew Lawton, which I think people appreciated his willingness to engage with us, to talk to the media. And by virtue, through talking to independent media, talking to the conservative base, who obviously they're the ones making the decision. It's not the Toronto Star. It's not all the fancy people in Toronto who determined who's going to be the leader of this party. It was the base. It was the members. And like you said, they put Erin O'Toole as their second or their third choice, and that's why he won.
Yeah. Well, I remember talking with you that day when you were sandbagged by Peter MacKay. I mean, first, Leslyn Lewis said she had an earache and her doctor advised her. And I think a few eyebrows were raised. But look, you got to take a woman at face value when she says, my doctor said I have an earache. And the fact that her campaign manager, Steve Outhouse, showed up in person to basically say, look, we're sorry, that made it credible. And I want to take Leslyn Lewis at face value. That's a real excuse that apparently was backed up with proof, and I don't think anyone took it as a snub. But when MacKay opportunistically said, "Oh, well, if she's not going, I'm not going," in solidarity with her earache, at which point Steve Outhouse said, "Yeah, we don't want that kind of solidarity from you, bro." It wasn't just that he canceled; it's that he said, "Yes, I'll be there," at the last minute for a fake excuse delivered fakely, and that said everything. This guy. So you used the phrase uncomfortable. He's uncomfortable with grassroots, populist, nationalists. I don't think discomfort is the word. I think there was a condescension, any excuse to bail. Let me put it this way. If it were the Globe and Mail that were sponsoring that fireside chat, if it were the CBC, do you think he would bail so cavalierly? No, he would not. And people saw that, and they saw... I call that contempt. And I remember talking with you, Candice, that day, and you were, perturbed by what had happened, rightfully so. It was a last-minute sandbagging. But in my view, with the passage of a few weeks' time, I think that crystallized in the minds of thousands of people the true nature of MacKay. I don't know what the total viewership of your debate was between our live stream and your live stream, and I think True North had it, and there was a lot of eyeballs on that. It wouldn't surprise me if 100,000 party members watched it or the clips from it. 100,000 people saw the true nature of MacKay. That's my hypothesis.
Well, and it went even further than that, Ezra, just on Twitter alone, which Twitter isn't a very good representation of the Canadian general public at large, but a lot of political activists on there, a lot of people who are members of the party. The Independent Press Gallery hashtag was trending. It had over 5 million impressions that night. So
wow.
Even if you weren't watching the actual footage, people were talking about it, people knew about it, people saw it. So I think that everyone was aware. I would say it was a major strategic error on behalf of Peter MacKay. I mean, obviously his strategy was, hey, look, I'm a conservative who would appeal to liberals. So that's my brand. And if I'm running, I'm kind of like Justin Trudeau, but without the scandals and without the baggage just yet, right? I haven't even gotten into office yet. And that was sort of his appeal. I know the CTV show, The Social, which everyone was making fun of them after the Don Cherry thing because a woman went on a rant about how white boys aren't very nice or whatever. So anyways, a bunch of liberal ladies that are it's kind of like the Canadian knockoff of The View. And they were all talking today about how disappointed they were that Peter MacKay lost because even though they're lifelong liberal voters, they might have voted conservative if Peter MacKay had won. So that's kind of the audience that Peter MacKay was going after. And I think it was a major strategic error because that's not what conservatives want. That's not what conservative members want. Sure, there are a couple of people, a handful of the party that says, anyone who can win. Let's just put forward anyone who can win, regardless of what they stand for, what they believe in. But I think there's a bigger population of conservatives out there who really believe in conservative values. They want Canada to be a strong, stable country. They want balanced budgets. They want all these things that conservatives believe in. They truly want these things for our country. And so it's not just about who can win an election. It's really about who's the best torchbearer for these ideas and who can defend them against, the many people that come after conservatives, be it liberals, partisans, the media, all these kind of things. So I think that MacKay made that strategic error, and where he made that error, Aaron O'Toole did the opposite. Yeah. He engaged with us, and he was much more open-minded to real conservatives.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.